All right, so acing the product interview, I'll be primarily focusing on, product speak, the top of the funnel, which is really how do you get the experience, how do you actually land the phone interview, how to ace the phone interview, and then the most important part, which is actually the take-home interview or take-home assignment. And then kind of going through like how would you structure each step in the product process. So my career transition, I started off in the strategy practice at Accenture, focused a lot on like analytics-based strategy projects. So over here, really, across like CPG, across healthcare, across financial services, really kind of identifying what the success metric is for our clients, breaking these into hypotheses, and then identifying, through kind of data insights, what the solution should be. And then from there, made the transition into a PM at a mobile gaming startup. So we had about, I'd say 5 to 8 different products in our portfolio. Each one was probably generating about 10 to 15 million a month. So they were top 100 iOS, Android games. And my role on this team was owning the P&L for one of the products and driving kind of the monetization and how do we basically increase the lifetime value to our customers. And then from there, I wanted to kind of leave the best coast, the West Coast, and go to New York City. So I joined. I also wanted to kind of jump into a role that had much more ownership, smaller product team, and focus more on like not only like existing product development but also new product development. So then joined the largest Asian dating platform in the US as a first product hire. And over here it was really kind of like focusing on increasing the subscription revenue for the product. And then from there was how do we get more people to connect real time. So it was kind of the launch of a live streaming platform which opened up a new revenue channel for us. And then currently leading product at the League. So if you guys are not familiar, it's basically a dating product for driven professionals. And our major concept is you have to be vetted before you actually use the product. So there's some sort of like wait list. And on this wait list we have about, I'd say close to 1 million users. And then based on our algorithm, we'll identify who belongs in our community and whatnot. And we're on Android, iOS, and then we're expanding to web. So how did I get into product management? So for me, I think it was the best of both worlds. Within Accenture, the things I liked a lot, all of those facets really belong to product roles. So things I liked doing were, one was kind of owning the end-to-end cycle of feature development. Second one was high direct impact. And I didn't want to be in a team where I owned small cog in the wheel, but really wanted to be in a very small team with high impact and could measure my success every quarter, every year in that time cadence. And then also, I wanted to be in a very dynamic role. So constantly wearing a lot of different hats, working with, one day working wireframing, another day maybe working on, working through a spec with an engineer, or, another day could be like sprint planning. And that's kind of, and then leaving Accenture, I think the core skill set I kind of brought with me was very that like analytical lens and how do we identify what area of the product that we should, improve. And for that, mobile gaming companies really want like more on the kind of analytical PMs, people that have worked with like driving revenue, and that was kind of the easy transition on how I kind of left Accenture and joined mobile gaming. And I think you guys have probably heard a few of these before, but I think a lot of like becoming a PM, there's maybe some people say there's like some standards or whatnot, and I think it's like do you really need to kind of have a technical degree? I would say, I never had a technical degree kind of breaking into product. I think as long as you have, the adaptability to be technically curious, you're able to kind of, work with engineers, listen to, potential, trade-off decisions. I think you're kind of, obviously able to kind of overcome that. A lot of roles are like MBA required. You need an MBA to kind of, land this role. And I think, end of the day, it's like, how are you going to show your adaptability, to learn? How are you going to, do well in kind of in ambiguous situations? And I think that's how you're going to be evaluated, at the end of the day. So I think, breaking into product, I think consuming resources will always help you, but will never actually make up, for the real life working experience of actually shipping products and features. So I think, few, resources, that I use and I still use, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I would think of it as like 3 core categories. So on the design front, there's a website called, user onboarding teardowns. So this website is actually really good to understand what does it, it concentrates really on the top of the funnel, new onboarding for all the major apps. You can think of like Spotify, Yelp, any product that you can kind of think of is on that website, and you can kind of scan through every step of the onboarding, and there's comments on what works and what doesn't work. So it'll tell you like, oh, like maybe we're asking too much information at step zero of this onboarding. We should maybe move collecting maybe education data later down the road after someone has already kind of become like a high intent user. So that helps a lot with like really understanding how a designer thinks, how to actually create really good first experiences for a product. I think the second and third is just use as many different products and apps that you wouldn't normally use. I've tons of apps on my phone that I never actually open, but really using it for whether it be competitive research or whether it be for just to kind of understand, how do people, say for a question, recently I had a question on, what information should I actually show on a pricing page? So you could actually kind of open up competitor apps, see what information, drove, highest conversions, what do people kind of best in the industry focus on. And then the third is actually, while you're going through a lot of these products, make some sort of like mental document where you understand, you're basically documenting, okay, maybe when we convey, this is simple, but when we convey like an error message, we're gonna use this type of font style, we're gonna use this type of color to convey. So I think kind of keeping track of like, and kind of being obsessed with the product and keeping that either whether it be a mental or have like a physical document every time I download a new app on my phone or discover a new product. And then I'm a huge advocate of real-time board. So I use real-time board for a lot of wireframing, but I would actually identify a product that I love. So I'm a huge advocate of Yelp. And what I did was actually, so I'm a Yelp elite for 5 years, proud of that, still on my resume. And what I did was actually improve a problem that they're facing today is how can we get more people to not just view and observe, view content, but how do we get more people to actually contribute to the review base? So here I actually, improve the flow, wireframe the flow on, what the review process should look like, which would, increase, say, like average reviews per user, say, per day, on the platform. So I would say those are like the core components I would use on the design front. More on the product front, everyone's probably heard of cracking the PM interview. So I won't touch too much on that. And I think in terms of like, at least for consumer products, what I do a lot is, we're competing with like Tinder, Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel. So I'll set a lot of like Google alerts for like search terms I care about. So if a new feature comes out, like Bumble just released, video calling. So I'm able to kind of, be the first to kind of read that article, how they implement it, breakdown of like, is it working? Do I feel the need to actually video date with my dates? So I think that's to kind of stay on top of the ball for the industry that you really want to kind of get into, whether it be ed tech, financial services, whether it be consumer, mobile gaming. And then something I think really important is how do you show kind of your thought process? And what I did for this was opened up a Medium account. There's a lot out there. I was just reading about a designer wanted to break into product design, and he started a Medium account where he broke down like bird scooters. So he broke down how can we kind of improve the ability to actually find a scooter on the map. And he actually ended up like designing the flow, talking about why this would work, why would it improve. And Bird actually ended up implementing that feature on kind of location mapping. So I would say that was really important for me to kind of convey on how would I actually think when I was kind of leaving Accenture. And then on the engineering front, I would say it's keeping up with obviously tech news. I think obviously like when you are say wireframing a feature, maybe spec it out. Write what the major kind of user stories are, what the acceptance criteria below each user story is, and maybe review it with an engineer friend or someone at your organization, that whether you work with them directly, but everyone's willing to kind of grab coffee and take time out of their calendar to kind of help someone grow. Cool. And then in the beginning I kind of touched on that consuming resources is only going to get you so far, but end of the day it's shipping products and features, and I think the catch-22 here is like, how the hell do I get product experience shipping products if I've never been a PM before? And a lot of these, so I think there's three main categories. So you got the networking component of it, which is PMHQ and Shaper. So Shaper's it's like Tinder for networking. So I find a lot of other like-minded PMs or aspiring PMs I'll sit down with. I would say on the experience side, I think is really important. So I think there's four core channels that how I did and how I would now get product experience without having say an offer or like a PM role in my hand. So I think the first one is shadowing. So I actually did a lot of shadowing. I would take a few hours off in the morning, shadow a daily stand-up, or I would shadow if I'm at an organization but not in a product capacity. What type of role can I get shadowing? Say at the mobile gaming company, I wanted to say I was in the marketing team, but I wanted to kind of transition the product. Talk to set these goals with your manager. How can I actually find someone that I want to shadow? The second one is so Gigster. So I'm a huge advocate of mobile app agencies. So there's tons and hundreds and thousands of them in California, and Gigster is global, but they're willing to take someone that whether it be part-time, whether it be full-time, you can kind of join on board, and what they do is you join a community, and in this community you can kind of take on projects. So a lot of the projects I built were a few things I built before I got into product. One was like an Airbnb for parking, or I built so if you guys are familiar with like beacons, beacons are belong in like stores and all that stuff, and based on where you are in the store, they can kind of upsell you something. So we actually used beacons to at gas stations to drive people in the convenience store, so like upsell them if they're like filling gas and all that stuff. So you actually work on very small and kind of short projects, and it teaches you a lot about getting an app or product to the app store. So it's not going to help you with actually the growth of an existing product, but it's really like how should I, spec it, scope it, work with the business development, sales, then work on design in terms of like getting the designs in place, and then kind of going into engineering and kind of more of the development side. So you hit all the kind of core teams. You're working with QA, design, engineering. You're working with like business development. So I'd say it's, find kind of a mobile app agency that will give you the ability to kind of push a lot of products out, even if you don't have experience. And then the last two, I think, the third one is, if you can find, I know the end goal might be, hey, I want to find a full-time offer within product, but I think, a lot of what I oversaw when I was trying to break into product was I wasn't willing to take a contract opportunity. So I think, looking back now, I think that would have been a much easier way to kind of, work within product, like take a 3 or 6 month, contract opportunity. A lot of larger companies, they hire 6 month, 1 year contracts. And I think that's an easy way to kind of do very well on the contract and then kind of get converted to full time. And when I was at Accenture, I'm big into food, and really kind of I've always been kind of with my friends, family. I've been kind of that center of like I'm the one that kind of recommends restaurants, whether it be for a date, whether it be for a family occasion, whether it be for like a large group. So I actually built. So the side project I did was actually I built a chat bot using ManyChat, which you don't actually have to be technical, but you're actually building the user flow based on what someone answers. These are the answers that it would kind of spit back for each question, and that kind of helped me really understand, okay, what are the requirements when I actually do recommend, taking kind of my thoughts and actually writing on paper, and then creating a like a food recommendation engine just for like friends and family. And then I think the third component, which I think is a very important component, which I think will help anyone stand out during a product interview, is the analysis portion of it. So whether it be teaching yourself, advanced Excel, but I would take like whether it be like W3 schools or another teaching platform, but learn SQL or kind of take work with the data team within your organization to kind of gain experience measuring success for a feature, a product, or how do you actually say you want to measure for Uber like average trips per user. Like how would that even look? What would the end data set even look like? And then how would you actually want to look at it? Would you want to look at it like aggregated time series? So really kind of get experience visualizing and creating what success looks like for a feature product.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talked about the side project, right? So is it a way, like if you created a side project and you could test it with a wider audience to see if it is a good side project or if you could refine it more?
Yeah, I guess, so yeah, testing it outside of family and friends, you think? You're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you can always, testing it, I think one is obviously using, Instagram, Facebook within your personal connection and LinkedIn. But I think, end of the day, if you're an advocate of your product, I actually end up spending about $20 to $30 a day on paid media to drive users, to this product. So that was, I would say that's how I kind of got to a wider audience. I think also in terms of, for me especially, I think, partnerships helped a lot. So I actually, if someone actually booked a restaurant or an activity through this, they would get some sort of like commission fee. So getting, say it's a restaurant, getting them to actually create a logo of it on their menu, or add a section on their website. So I would say, those were kind of the main tactics I used, which were like mainly, paid media, but a very low volume, getting friends of friends, and then also looking at kind of like those offline partnerships. And then the phone interview. So I think the phone interview. I think covering things outside of circles. You guys have probably heard of circles and all that fun stuff, which is more like design focused. I'm focusing more on. We've gone through a lot of phone interviews, and it's really kind of broken into three main pillars. So one is the elevator pitch of your experience. And I think it's very different when it comes to product, because I've actually interviewed for like marketplace products. I've interviewed for like payments products. But how does your experience directly tie into a payments product? So for example, say Stripe for like a PM role, they wanted someone with payments experience. How does someone in dating actually have experience? And why are they a great fit for this role? So I really touched on a few things. So I touched on one is like different payment platforms I've worked with. Second was when we went international to Asia. How do we actually deal with like basically an economy that was mainly a cash-based economy? So say for example we expanded to Philippines. So how do we actually define the monetization strategy within an economy that only wanted to pay for things in cash? So that's, for example, those are like few experiences I would, highlight within my elevator pitch. Or, on the other side, if I interview for, a marketplace, I talk a lot about, you could think about dating as a semi-marketplace, but I really would talk about driving revenue is directly correlated to having a good balance of males and females within your product. So you can think about it as like supply and demand within a marketplace. And I would touch on a lot of experiences on how should we acquire users at the right rate so we can kind of maximize revenue within the product. I would also talk about if there's I guess that was the main one for like the marketplace imbalances and how would you kind of deal with that problem. So I would say really understand what the core of the product is, and maybe it's a growth role or a payments role or a marketplace role, and kind of really guide your experience towards that. Second, I think is more like the behavioral questions I'll go into next. And then I think the third one is obviously the most important when getting into product, which is why do you actually want to work on that specific product? So whether it be you could take for example, let's see, you could take for example like Uber. It's you want to work for a culture that doesn't take no for an answer, is able to grow very quickly. You want to have the chance to not only work on the rides portion of Uber, but you also want to work on, say, the eats portion, the helicopter or like plane portion of it, or maybe you care a lot about transportation and how that's maybe helped your friends that may have been out of a job or unemployed, but they were able to kind of make a side income. So why do you actually want to work on that product? Why do you actually resonate with the mission? And then going through conducting a lot of like phone interviews, plus also going through, I would say, a lot of phone interviews. A lot of people will say there's categories outside of these, but I would say this definitely encompasses, I would say, 80 to 85% of the core categories of what you're really going to get during the phone interview. So one is, and I think, I think when I was leaving, consulting, when you're leading consulting, you're really good at like, you know, using buzzwords. You're really good at like talking and you know, talking through problems, but not very concisely. And you know, you probably heard this a lot, but the STAR method has kind of helped me a lot with being very clear and concise, and really constructing, you know, what the core, how does it solve the question that, you know, that they're asking you. So you're basically going, what is the situation, what is the task, action, and the results, which tends to be more quantitative. You know, so conflict is, you know, tell me a time you know, disagree with the engineer, or it could be like, tell me a time, you know, our company's a little smaller, so tell me a time when you know, you disagreed with the CEO on a, you know, particular feature, or prioritization. How did you kind of deal with it? What did you bring to the argument? What was the overall action? End of the day, I think, you know, as a PM, you want to be very opinionated, and how did you kind of not necessarily get what you wanted to get out, but how did you get what you thought was the best for the user, you know, prioritized. Second, you know, is bias for action or trade-offs. So when was there a time when, you know, there were tight deadlines, you didn't have time to consider all the options, maybe you didn't even have access to data, but how did you end up making a decision? So a lot of what I would bring up is, you know, a lot of experiences when, you know, we had to hit our monthly revenue goals. And what did we do end of the month that didn't need a very, you know, quantitative perspective, but what did we release that helped us reach our revenue goals? And it didn't, you know, it didn't give us like few days for like the research phase of product development and things like that. Third is, you know, they want to know that you're not just working on status quo, but you're constantly, you know, innovating. You know, what have you innovated? It could be anything. You innovated a new process on how design hands off to engineering, or you innovated how the company measures daily active users, or you brought in. So I brought in for mobile gaming. There's a huge concept of like leaderboards. So people compete against other people, and then it's within a limited time. And end of the day or end of the time series, people win prizes. So that actually worked really well, bringing kind of the leaderboard aspect to dating for kind of our streaming product. So that was, you know, just a simple kind of product, you know, innovation, how I used the different industry I was in to kind of apply to a new industry I was in. The fourth is, you know, analytical results. And obviously, you know, tell me a time you had to use data to derive a decision. So a lot of what I used, you know, for this was, so I identified a correlation, you know, within the dating space, which was the age gap between kind of a male and female would drive, was negatively correlated to the response rate, you know, from a female user. So what we were maximizing for was, how do we improve the female response rate? So we looked at like, what were the different attributes that would drive females to respond more to guys. So for this, you know, in our search logic, what we did was we found out what was the kind of optimal age gap between the, you know, male and female. It was around like, you know, 3 or 4 years, and how can we apply that, you know, within our, you know, search algorithm? How can we prioritize, say, females that would fit within this age gap? So, and then they would ask you like, oh, what would the data set look like? What did the data set look like? You know, what were the, you know, success metrics? How did you decide that this was an opportunity to kind of pursue? And then, you know, fifth is, you know, what are you most proud of? What's your kind of biggest success? And, you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the sixth is, end of the day, as a, you know, PM, you want to be customer obsessed. So what have you done that, you know, to better understand the needs of your customers? And for this, I mean, a lot of what we did was we had launched a speed dating feature. So it was really like we wanted to get more people to meet one-on-one, real-time, go on, say, like virtual dates. And we had launched the ability to actually, you can accept and reject someone during a video call. And a lot of what we learned was, users didn't actually want to accept or reject a user in person. They wanted to kind of, they didn't want to reject it because then it, obviously, how do I say it? Oh yeah, you don't accept them because what if you accept them, then they reject you back? So you're kind of putting yourself out there. And if you reject them, then the feeling the other person feels. So we found that like a lot of these video calls, we could call them like dead calls. So a lot of the, say 80% of our calls, there's no action made. So we actually reached out to our users and really understood that we had to have a different mechanism for them to vote on the user after the video call was done. And then that's when we built kind of the, that you could actually see all your video date matches after the call, and then kind of make a decision on, if you want to accept or reject them, and that improved our match rate by like 3 or 4x, on the platform. All right, so the second one, I think one of the most important steps in the interview process, literally, it's to show off your product craft and your skill set. And any kind of interview process I've been through, always the second or third step is, how do you think outside of case interviews or whatnot? But when you actually have time, say 48 hours or a week, to answer a particular question, or you're solving a real problem, say for example, so for like the league, my take home was, they had a problem with referral rates. So the question was, how to increase the referral rate, on the platform, so we don't have to spend as much on like paid media or marketing budget. So these are a few of the questions I've seen and also heard of. So a lot of them will ask. A lot of them are the same. Like, how would you improve X metric? Why does this feature exist? What was their hypothesis on why why this feature exists? What do you think the PM was thinking when they created this feature? So this touches on a few few products. One was Facebook Messenger when they released it for its native camera. Second one was, how would you increase the revenue of Bumble? Third one was, how would you increase the amount of Yelp reviews we have on our platform? Fourth one is Redfin, so it's in real estate tech. So Redfin now is a portion of it, which was renovations to the house that you had just bought. So how would you improve the experience for like renovation managers? Or Uber is just a pretty popular one, but how would you increase the average trips per user on Uber? And there's many more. So I'll kind of go into one and kind of walk through it and how would I think about it. So I don't think the end document of this, I don't think you really have to, it doesn't have to be a PowerPoint. I usually use a Google Doc, and it allows someone to really understand the level of depth that you need to without a presentation. But some companies will mandate PowerPoint if you're actually going on site to present it. But a lot of the take homes, they'll evaluate it before you actually make it to the on-site. So how would you increase the revenue for Bumble? So if you guys are not familiar with the business model, so what the business model is you could match with someone, but females have to initiate the first message, or it becomes a dead match. So males are not able to actually initiate any of the conversations. And the existing monetization strategy is just, you're buying subscriptions that have few benefits. So obviously the first step, research the company and product. So understand why, Whitney Wolf, the CEO, started Bumble. What is their mission? Why have they done what they have done? Take screenshots of every aspect, every screen of the product. from a male or a female's perspective. And then also understand what they currently offer to our members. When do you feel, when you're using the product, when do you feel the urge to actually want to spend money? So that's more on the research phase, not actually on the kind of final presentation, but really helps to kind of give you the basis. Then step 2, so make sure you customize this for the product. But at first, not being a in-house PM here, looking at it from the outside, you really want to understand how did you actually come up with the features to move the needle for revenue. So for this specific one, I just came up with 7 different channels, right? So one was I want to look at, these are the data points I would look at. So one was route to conversion for current customers. So how many times did a user have to vote on someone before they converted? Really understanding what was the existing paying behavior, and then how can we shift a lot of these not payers towards that route. Second is pretty straightforward customer feedback survey. Talk to people that have been members on the platform, what made them want to convert, people that may have churned, maybe understand why they churned from the platform. Here's a double-edged sword because a dating app churn could be good and bad if you found a match on the platform. But focusing more on like the negative churn. Third is pretty honestly across all consumer products, I would say, what is the main drop-off point? So say for Bumble, it's what is the funnel of the conversion, right? So you start off with vote, you get to match. You have an empty conversation thread, and then you can exchange a message or not. Time could expire, so does the time of the conversation expire, and then the user say views a pricing page, and then they check out. So this is for mobile app. Web could be inputting your credit card details, CVC, all that fun stuff. But really understanding or stating that, hey, I would look at these are the drop-off points of conversion, and this is how, this is where I think the, say, largest opportunity is. So I think customer support is obviously a huge advocate, looking through old tickets, looking through what are common questions they get from their users. We actually built a platform where our customer support team, as they're answering questions, they will post user feedback directly to our Slack channel, and then our Slack channel will create a automated kind of Excel document. So we actually we have like a pretty big CS team. It's around 15 people, and we're getting tons of user feedback. The fourth one, which is more specific to Bumble, but it's what type of, say I'm a female and I'm looking for males. Was there a specific male that tended from made me want to convert? Was there looking at, say, like search results? So say I belong in like a small city, say like a small city in like West Virginia, and say the search results are just limited, right? So we want to see like how many swipes do they actually go through before they hit the roadblock for the day. Do we need to kind of throw more acquisition to, are they basically, when they tap the search, are they actually hitting a lot of like empty search results? Or are they like filtering, say, a lot of people in West Virginia want people that are, just say some sort of ethnicity, this age group, and every time they filter by that age group, no one shows up. So we could look at like, say, empty search results based on filtered criteria. And then a fifth or sixth one is competitor analysis. So obviously there's a lot of competitors for this product, but understanding what they're doing, why are they doing it, does that fit into kind of the mission product? So you can kind of, in this case, just state what are the direct competitors. Yeah. So I think these are, I would say, specific for, some of these are specific for dating. but making sure that you're kind of thinking through like how are you going to collect the data to come up with the features that you recommend at the end of the presentation. And then, since this is revenue focused, this is going to be what are the main benefits of becoming a subscriber. So, say for Uber, I want to increase average trips per user. So maybe the benefits is average trips per user. So you want to state like, so in this case, you would probably, skip this step as, it's not directly corded to say like a subscription plan or whatnot, but say like you would want to state instead of like the benefits of becoming a subscriber, you would want to state why someone would take more trips in a given time period. So whether it be that they started to commute more, or say public transportation closed down in the area. There's a lot of different reasons, but I would state what would drive someone to take a low volume of trips, and then you could focus on those as like pain points. So these are a few that, hey, I want to make my profile stand out from others. I want to increase the number of matches I have on the platform. I want to be able to match with people that I had kind of lost the connection with them or they never responded. I also want, the fourth one is more on like scarcity. So if you limit the number of swipes that someone can do, I want to basically unlock and engage and get more swipes. And then the last one is I want to, end of the day, it's like bottom of the funnel is I want to match, exchange my phone number, I want to go on a date and then become in a relationship. And one of those steps is how can I increase my chance of getting a response? So these could be things like, hey, I want to unlock a new GIF to get her attention, or I want to I want to basically be able to share, say, photos from like Instagram within a conversation thread, or I want to send her a gift, so it's like an animation when she logs into the conversation thread. But I want to basically maximize my chances of getting a response from a match. And then the main thing is you're just going to tie all these user stories back to what the benefits are, or in Uber's case, the pain point that you'd be solving on why someone would be their average trips per user is much lower than the average in the user base. And then the fourth step is you're just listing the solutions. So as a type of user, I want this feature because it benefits me. So I take a pretty simple example here. It already exists, but if you want to talk through any other features down the road or any kind of other problems that you're facing later, we can kind of go through that. But this was like, hey, as a Bumble user, I want to be able to boost my profile because I want to increase the number of matches I have on the platform. And this is, if you go back, this is like, hey, I want to increase the number of connections I have on the platform. And then, so below each user story, you'll kind of go into the acceptance criteria. So this is just a list of, say they're like, hey, come up with 5 features. You're going to come up with 5 user stories, and then just come up with the acceptance criteria. So for this, it's just the boundaries of the user story. How do we convey to cross-channel teams that the story is actually complete, and then it's expressed in a very like pass-fail format. So if they don't hit it, then it's if this isn't seen, then it's a fail. So it's clearly kind of written in a. It doesn't have to be a specific format or anything, but because you've already specified who the user is. But so for this one, for boosts, kind of go into, hey, I'm able to buy a boost when I navigate to the pricing page. Second is, I'm able to see an option to buy 1, 3, 5 boosts when they hit purchase boosts. Third one is, what is a boost, right? So a boost is, user will be seen to the first 250 people that log in that fit their preferences for that boost. So say I'm searching for, this ethnicity, this age group, the first 250 people that log in, or in my area, in my San Francisco region, am I actually shown to 250 users, first users that show up? Do I show up in their batch? And then, we could play around with it. We could say this is a web product for now, but you could talk about like payment, like user must input, credit card, expiration, email, CPC, full name to complete purchase. And then, you go into like the other part of it, which is the negative, right? So they won't receive the boost if credit card payment fails. And then you can kind of go into what does a credit card payment fail look like, and then what happens? What does a user see from the UX standpoint? So in this case, it's display an error message that states this copywriting when the credit card fails, and then display a success message that happens when it's successful. So hey, you've obtained 3 boosts, and you can see some sort of like animation of it added to your profile. And I think this should be kind of written in a way where you can just hand it off to a QA resource that can execute against acceptance criteria, but also, within a ticket or whatnot, it kind of defines the boundaries of what your user story is. All right, and then the most famous question, prioritization. I think, every phone interview you're gonna get this. Hey, how do you prioritize? Or, how do you prioritize? Oh, like maybe a designer will ask you, why'd you prioritize this over this? And, I don't think everything is, cookie cutter, but I would say the formula that, I've come up with that's worked really well during interviews, and it takes into consideration the analytical side, the engineering side, and then also the history of the company into consideration. So what I kind of look at is what is the reach times the impact times the confidence over the dev costs. So sample calculation of the user story that we did was, hey, this is going to have a 4.2 on the kind of prioritization scale. And how to kind of think about it. So whatever the success metric is, so the impact could be average trips per user, or it could, in this case, be revenue. So a lot of this, you're just showing how you're actually going to prioritize. You can kind of give assumptions like, okay, I give it a 4 because I think not everyone's going to see it because a lot of people don't visit the pricing page. But what is the overall impact to revenue you think it will be? So I gave it a 4. The reach, the number of users it will impact. So I think how I think about impact is for the user base you're targeting, how much impact is it going to have on them? And then reach is, for boosts, it's seen by everyone, right? But say you want to take so say like Uber just released a new loyalty program, like a platinum loyalty program. So the reach will be obviously much, much lower because it's impacting a very small subset of your monthly active users. So you want to basically assess that where in the product this is found, is it going to impact our full user base, or is it only going to impact one gender, one age group, or whatnot? So that's how I would define reach. And then confidence, is something where you'll basically just have to make an estimate, and a lot of that is I say I'm 70% confidence, and what that really means to me, I think, is one thing is are other competitors doing this, or are we like a first mover? Second is, have we run a similar experiment to impact the same metric in the past, and how did that perform? And are we confident that building on top of that experiment that worked really well, are we pretty confident that this is going to work? And then third is, has something similar been done in your previous experience, or in kind of a cross channels previous experience that worked really well? Could even be like improving the UX of something like we had, so all the people that like you, like incoming hearts, are people that have liked you. So for that, we actually had a list view of like all the people that liked you, and you can kind of go through it, click on the profile, match with them. But obviously, we're pretty confident that if we change it to the swiping method, this is probably like 4 years ago, that we're pretty confident that that more people will go through a lot of their hearted backlogs. So backlog of people that have hearted them much quicker, and that will increase our match rate. So for that, it's like, hey, another company's done it, but maybe we've implemented something similar in the past that's worked, or we've implemented a similar swiping method when it came to a different component within the product that worked really well. And then the last component is dev costs. So obviously 5 being the highest, 5 being the hardest, and you really want to this can kind of be more of a, hey, what part of the product does it touch? Do we have similar screens on the client side that we can reuse for the feature? Will we have to use like a third party? Do we have experience with it? Kind of a lot of these questions, you're kind of asking yourself. And at the end of the day, you want to prioritize the highest impact per dev unit, basically the lowest hanging fruits. And then for this, it's like once you've listed your user stories, you can basically just create a table, that kind of goes through these different pillars. How would you rank each pillar? Maybe a justification, and then what the prioritization is on the scale. And then from there, once you've identified it, step 6 is literally just stating the solution. So we could say in this case, we only had one user story, but we wanted to boost was selected. It was the highest ranked on prioritization. You just state the reason why you decided to pursue that feature. And then step 7 is you want to appeal to design and other PM folks. So in this case, this can literally even be like, take a screenshot of the existing product and just put like PowerPoint text boxes on top of it, or you can actually build it from the ground up. So you could for Boost, you could show, for example, what the pricing page would look like. Second could be based on the home screen of Bumble, where would you actually access this pricing page? So would it be a new icon or whatnot? And third could be other areas that you could access this. So maybe obviously you want to access it from settings or profile. And then I don't think that the successful error prompts, you may not have to wireframe, but it's mainly like wireframe how a user will discover it, and when they discover it, what will they see? And then you can maybe write a few sentences on how it fits in with the existing user experience. So then you'll just pick Boost, you'll wireframe that, and then the last step of the process is implementation and tests. So at the end of the day, it's when you get the feature out, you don't want to release it and then low adoption, there's a lot of bugs, it doesn't perform as well as expected. But say Boost is like a totally new feature that no one's ever launched. It's something we want to A/B test. We want to make sure that we're hitting our goals. So let's first define what success looks like. So in this case, it's success for us. Maybe looks like, okay, we want to improve 14-day conversion rate. So we want to improve average revenue per user in the first 14 days. We want to improve like 14-day conversion rate. It's a new feature, so we want to make sure that we can, we have adoption. So say 100 people buy out of our 100 people buy out of our 1,000 users per day, we'll have a 10% adoption, for that specific, feature on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, the only way you can increase revenue is mass adoption and repeat purchases. And then,
I guess question?
Yeah, yeah.
So in step 3, do you kind of define how the kind of a sort of the success of the whatever you're doing looks like? So here,
Or step 3?
yeah. So instead of the
Oh, so these are more the levers that you
Right.
can push and pull as a PM, and what are the current pain points of the product, and then you're tying the user stories to each of these pain points.
So isn't it your success related to how the end result that you're stating in step?
Or yeah, I would say the success metrics relate to the question,
Okay.
which is how would you increase the revenue for Bumble? So you're tying it directly to revenue, and there's different ways of looking at revenue. And yeah, end of the day, another success metric is we want to make sure that new users are also buying Boost, because if their first purchase of new users goes down, then you actually can't increase the virality of this feature if it's only existing users buying the Boost. And then, yeah.
So do we start with the success matrix or we end with the success matrix?
Yeah, so you can actually, you can start with the success metric. So it can be, as you're going, so it would, mainly be before the, identify data channels. You could state, a lot of times they'll give you the success metric. So say in the case that Uber wants to increase average trips per user, you would basically state, what does average trips per user mean? So it means like average trips per user could be number of trips that occurred in a given day over the number of people that logged into the app that day. Or you just define it that, hey, this is a core metric that I'm going after. But in this case, I think revenue was just a little bit more straightforward. But a lot of times they'll give you, hey, I want to increase this engagement metric, or I want to increase match rate, or how would I increase match rate? It would just depend on the kind of problem or product. But that's a good point. So I think revenue was more straightforward. So it's mainly like, hey, we want to increase monthly revenue, or like average revenue per user or whatnot. They're all like indirectly tied to monthly revenue. So you would state it and then kind of go into the data channels that would impact that. And then, so you've kind of defined, this is what success, or not success, these are the key metrics we're going to monitor. And then actually setting up the A/B test. So a lot of what people, I've asked this question probably 100 times during interviews, and I think 1 out of 100 people will actually get it right. But there's a lot of different requirements that go into setting up an A/B test. So a lot of requirements could be, okay, do we want to release it to only like geo? Do we want to release it to a particular age group? But I think the most important thing is, or for like this question is, how can we set up an A/B test that is going to be an unbiased experiment? And what that means is we want to show this feature to people that have never seen the product before. So in this case, it would be new users. So, a lot of like A/B tests that we've run, we've only released it to new users to truly track the conversion rate of this feature. Because if, say, the conversion rate's the same for new users and it's just our existing users that are buying it, it's just going to be a spike of, because the product is slightly better and that's why people are buying more. But is actual long-term experience, having this boost feature actually getting more new users to actually convert. So a lot of what we do is we'll set it up and release it to just new users, track, say, the conversion rate across test or control or whatever the success metric is, and then we'll run it until it's statistically significant. And then the last step is, you're kind of owning every aspect from marketing to engineering to data. Is everything in place to mark this feature as released? So there's a lot of different components here. I've just listed a few, but one is marketing. So do we need to post on our Facebook, Instagram channel that we're launching this new feature? Do we want to throw more? Do we want to change our campaigns to state, hey, you can increase your chances? Probably not that one actually, but it would mainly be, do you want to send the email out? Marketing, so email marketing. Second would be, do we want to change basically copywriting? Does it fit branding on, say, the pricing page or wherever this feature touches it? And so that would be kind of encompassing of like the marketing component. Second is feature flags. So feature flags, could be defined as like a switch, which we control which users see the feature, which they don't. So this could be simple as don't forget to turn on the feature switch. So we've done that before, where we thought the experiment was running, but we forgot to actually turn on the feature switch. And we were all in the test version, so it was like we were like playing around with the feature and all that stuff, but none of our users were seeing it. So it actually took us like a day or two to actually figure out that the feature wasn't turned on. And is it turned on to the right percentage that we're testing? Dashboards. So regardless of how we're how we're visualizing our success metrics, whether it be Periscope, Tableau, Amplitude, are the dashboards in place? To closely monitor it. We also maybe want to track like uptime or particular like bugs coming in. And then I think an important thing for our product too, and I guess a lot of products, is the CS team. So at the end of the day, if the CS team doesn't know about the feature being released, they can't actually respond to your customers. So being a smaller startup, I would say it's even more important since we're pushing out much more frequently. But creating some sort of training document or screenshots of what this feature would look like, and then handing it over to the CS team.
Customer support?
Yeah, customer support or success. And then I'd say for like new product launches or whatnot, there's also like a legal component. So legal component, do we have the right terms of service in place? Do we have the right privacy policy? Is our copywriting, does it abide by like any rules and regulations? So that would be kind of more on the legal standpoint. But I'd say the core buckets are like marketing, the feature itself. You could think about like payments. So setting up some sort of like payments so people can actually, was the product ID approved by Apple? Dashboards, analytical, CS, and then you can think about like communications, which is more like marketing, push notifications, things like that. So yeah, I think that's about it.